Good evening, my name's Angela McGee. I'm an international psychic medium. I'm more renowned for the TV series Psychic Investigators. It's about mediums who've helped to solve murder with police detectives. But the key ingredients to the series was the fact that they needed the police in the documentaries to confess that they'd used a medium in some way. So I've wrote a number of books, I've been on tours, I've travelled the world. So yeah, my gift has been the biggest part of my life. In fact, it's been all of my life since I was a very little girl. But see, I've come on to tell you some stories, basically. This one story became very popular in the first book. I had a lot of emails, a lot of messages about BAZ. He was very, very popular in this life, and he's certainly popular in the next life. So it was when I was filming Psychic Investigators, my phone rang frantically. I was then given permission to answer it. So there on the end of the phone was a mother who was frantic. She just said, "Angela, I've been looking for you everywhere. Please, can you come to Newcastle, because we think our son's been murdered." So anyway, to organise the time and the date off work, I realised I'd only got one date coming up, or day, shall we say. And then I asked how far Newcastle was, and she told me. And then I said, well, I can't do it in a day. So she then panicked and went, don't worry. She said, we'll fly you up here. So anyway, to cut a long story short, they booked me a flight from Birmingham to Newcastle. It was the business flight. It was champagne breakfast as well for the businessman. And of course, I got a little bit spoilt then, obviously. But you see, what happens in my case is when I do connect with the case, it's usually the night before. In the dream state, I'm shown a vision. And last night, the night before the flight, was no different. I saw an illuminated right arm and like a spotlight shining on a right arm. I thought this is to do with the young lad tomorrow. So anyway, I was told by Sheila that her husband David will be meeting me at the airport with, we'll have a card with my name on. And so I came out the gangway and I was looking round, and do you think I could find somebody? But no, my intuition kicked in. I walked in up to a man, tall man with grey hair, tapped him on the shoulder and said, David. And he went, oh, you're good, aren't you? I said, well, I am psychic, David. Anyway, we got in the car. I told him about the illuminated arm the night before. And he just said the whole of the case is an issue surrounding his right arm. So anyway, what happened was, as we were driving along, I felt presence like I'd never felt it before. It was as if he's sitting right next to me. BAZ in the spirit world was sitting next to me, talking away. And he just said, tell him it's BAZ. So anyway, that was the first thing I said to him. I said, David, it's BAZ, it's BAZ. He said, why, hey, that's my boy. I said, anyway, he tells me you've been married twice and got 5 kids. And he laughed. He said, yeah, I have. And then all of a sudden I heard BAZ shout, by the church, by the church. I said, you must live by a church, because he's on about by the church, by the church. He said, and he smiled again and he said, yeah, you could say that. Anyway, we went through the estates of Newcastle, and there we saw in the peripheral vision, you could see a church. We were approaching a church and we turned into the graveyard, and there was Baz's home. It was a big mansion house joined onto the back of a church. And of course, David couldn't wait to get out the car. He almost left the door open, ran into Sheila in the kitchen and started shouting. She already knows his name. She knows about his right arm. And then I started to panic, thinking, I've got to write this down, because he's just talking 10 to the dozen. And I just went, quick, get me pen and paper, get me pen and paper. Anyway, I started writing. And I could hear one significant thing was he's shouting, I didn't want to go, I didn't want to. I said, oh, something terrible's happened to his son. He didn't want to go, he didn't want to go. So the next vision was, I said, you need to take me somewhere. I said, there's a row of houses opposite a green embankment. I said, I do believe that that's where he left that final evening. That's where he started those last movements. So he said, you're describing his girlfriend's house. We shall go there. So anyway, they got me in the car. They had a tape recorder. They were taping me. And they took me through to the streets of Newcastle. And we stopped outside the house. And there in my mind's eye, I saw Solway Road written up in my mind's eye. And I said, Solway Road, that's where he went. He went up Solway Road. He said, that's round the corner. So we followed he took the car around the corner, and then I had another vision. I said, in front is a car with his friends in it. I said, the car's stopping, Baz is getting out, and he's walking out off up the road. And he said, yes, I can confirm that. He did get out the car and get out and walk up the road. Next vision that I had, I said, there's a row of shops, but there's flats above. But there's something about one of the windows of one of these flats. It looks all smoky. Anyway, he took me to the top of the road. There was the row of shops. The window was really smoky. It was because somebody had took Polaroid sticky tape and stuck it on the window. It had bubbled up, and it did give the impression that it was smoky, and so you couldn't see in the flat. So we sat outside, and then I said to David, I looked over at the flat, and then I was remote viewing. I was inside the flat, and I just went, there's a blue pattern settee and one chair. It's very sparse. I said, that's where your boy's body was found lying, on that settee. He said, I haven't been there. He said, but I can get you the keys to somebody who's got them. He said, and we'll go in. And so he explained, he said, the young man that's coming with the keys is the young man who said he was with him those last hours. He said, I'll tell him you're an auntie from the Midlands, and I'll tell him to tell you exactly what happened. So anyway, the young man arrived with the keys. He got in the car, and he started to talk and explain. Well, I was taken back because have you ever heard a real Geordie talk? I couldn't understand a word he was saying. I got the odd sentence or the odd word, but I couldn't. But my guide was going, he's not giving the full picture. He's not telling the truth. So anyway, the boy went, and I said to David, I said, couldn't understand a word he was saying, but I know I'm being told he's not giving you the full picture to what happened. Anyway, so he says, come on, let's go in. So we went into the apartment, the flat, and there was the blue pattern settee and the one chair. I saw Baz's body lying on his left arm, lying on the settee. I saw the boy who I met in the car sitting at his feet, and then I turned to the empty chair, and I saw a second boy. And I said, David, he wasn't the only boy that was with him when he passed. I said, there was another boy sitting in that chair. And he said, can you describe him? So I described him in detail, his checkered hat and his bomber jacket and his blue eyes, mouth, yeah, and the actual something metal on his trainers. And he said, you're describing his younger brother, the guy that we'd sat in the car with. I said, well, he was here too. He said, they're always together, so I'm not surprised. So anyway, in the next vision, I saw the boys hanging over the back of the settee, lifting up Baz's right arm and injecting a lethal dose of heroin. And that was their answer, because according to the coroner, nobody could shoot themselves in their right arm when they're found lying on their left. So that was the answer to what I saw. I felt my guides being lifted. So I said, come on, let's go. David lingered, and he sat in the settee where his son had passed, stroking the arm. I could read almost his every thought. And then a thought came in with me. I wished and had begged that I could give him, for 1 minute only, if only I could give him all that I saw and heard of his son. So, yeah, we gathered our thoughts, and he seemed to stand up and book up and went, come on, let's go for lunch. So anyway, we went to lunch and then went back to the house. we were in the living room, and BAZ's presence, it was felt again. This time he came through with messages of love and hope, and literally to lift his mum and dad as they'd been so low that morning. All of a sudden I said, BAZ is showing me a photograph. I said, he looks about 11, 12. He's standing by a stone wall, and I see Northumberland written up. He said, I took him camping when he was about that age. I've got a photograph. I'll go and get it. So off he went to get this photograph, and he came back. And then by the time he came back, BAZ had shown me another photograph of him and his 4 mates in Ibiza. And it was obviously more recent times. So I said to the dad, I believe you went to Ibiza here. He showed me a picture. He said, I've got that photo too. Off he went to fetch it, come back. He gave me the photo, and then BAZ named them all, John O'Sully, Campbell. And then he started laughing, BAZ. I could hear him smile, laughing, and see a big grin. And he's shouting, Jono in a suit, Jono in a suit. And David smiled, and he went, yeah, everybody did smile at Jono in his suit. He'd never wore a suit before, but he wore one for his funeral. So it was quite a warm experience to lift everybody in that sense. So anyway, it got to the time where BAZ said those words that he wanted to portray to his parents. But the most important sentence for him as a young man, and I know that in Geordie culture they're not too demonstrative by telling each other that they love each other. And I heard BAZ say, tell my dad I love him. And with that, I said, David, BAZ wants to tell me he loves you. And it was like giving him a bullet. He shot out the settee, off the settee, shall we say. And then he flustered, and then he said, come on, I think it's about time we went back to the airport. Anyway, we got in the car. As we're driving along, he said, if you could be chauffeured about in any car, what would it be? I said, what a strange question. He said, just answer me, he said. He said, Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, Bentley. I said, what's all this about? He said, just answer me, he said. And then all of a sudden I heard BAZ in my head go, roller, go for a roller. So I said, I'll have a roller. He said, what colour? And then BAZ went, go for gold. And I said, David, it's got to be gold. And he said, isn't that funny? He said, I was going to buy a gold Rolls Royce before BAZ had passed. He said, I think I'm going to go back and get it. He said, you know why? And this was his way of expressing how he felt about the day's findings. He just said, because you're coming back to Newcastle, and when you do, I'm going to chauffeur you about in a gold Rolls Royce. That's how much it's meant to me today. And I went, oh, that's lovely. Anyway, so off I went, got on my plane, came home. 2 weeks later, Sheila was on the phone saying, he's bought that Rolls Royce. He wants you to come up and meet all the family. So obviously, I had a weekend, being chauffeured about in a gold Rolls Royce. And that's a small perk to being a medium, shall we say? Or shall we say a big perk to being a medium? I mean, God is kind, and God does recognise. It's not, you know, we're in a, could call an industry, but we're in a belief system where God is your Godhead. God is at the helm. He says, but you know, sometimes he does give you little rewards, and that was a very, very special one. So gather your thoughts, everybody, and come and see me on March the 20th, coming up at Kingshurst Club in Birmingham. It is advertised and circulating. I'd love to see you all, and take care and God bless, and may your loved ones be always with you as you never walk alone.